Hey there, everybody. Blessed and happy new year to all of you. We hope that you enjoyed our Unlikely Heroes segment, if you were able to catch that during our Advent time. If not, we encourage you to go back and take a look at it. But now we're in that awkward time frame between when Advent ended and Lent.
Yes.
So
it's not very many weeks.
I was going to say, I think we said we have about six weeks.
Yeah.
So this segment that we're going to sneak in here before we dive into Lent is going to be called Ask Us Anything. So last week on Facebook, we put out a plea to ask us anything concerning the Bible. And the questions were very slim. And by slim, I mean one. And it was a joke from a sister to another sister, because this one sister really loves genealogy and family trees and tracing everything heritage-wise, family related. So we really want you guys to ask us some questions.
Ask us anything.
Because otherwise this is going to be a really short segment and we will only have one instead of six for you. But so today's question by no means is an easy and simple one to answer.
No, so feel free to ask us simpler ones too.
She asked about the genealogy, the census of Jesus Christ. And so we're going to give it to you as best we can. We have two different versions. But if you want, grab your cup of coffee or your juice box or whatever you're drinking and join us, because we're going to
attempt to figure out a family tree.
So here we go. So the first family tree that we're going to look at comes from Matthew. You can find it in Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 through 16. I am going to spare you from reading all of those names, because I think every pastor in America right now would cringe at the pronunciation that I would attempt. So we just encourage you, if you have a Bible or you have a Bible at home, either look it up now or look it up later. But I'm going to start with verse 17 and then work backwards just a little bit so that you guys know exactly where I'm coming from. So verse 17 says, there were 14 generations from Abraham to David, another 14 from David to the Babylonian exile, and then another 14 from the Babylonian exile to Christ. So if we pick it up in verses 15 and 16, we've got a lot of names that I can't pronounce. But basically we get to that Jacob had Joseph, not Old Testament Jacob, obviously, a different Jacob. But Jacob had Joseph, Mary's husband, the Mary who gave birth to Jesus, the Jesus who was called Christ. So we start at the top with Abraham, Isaac had Jacob, and then we just kind of go all the way through that 16 verses worth.
32 generations.
I was going to say a lot of generations. But then we also
42.
Then we also see a different version in what you're going to share with us.
Yeah, so then there's another genealogy that's listed in Luke chapter 3, and this genealogy follows exactly the same as the one in Matthew. Only difference is that it actually starts with Adam. God had Adam, and then Adam had Seth, and then it goes from there, whereas the one in Matthew starts at Abraham. So we go a little bit further back, and it's exactly the same until the time of David. And then we get to David, and now all of a sudden the names are a little different. And it ends then, well, it actually begins, because it goes backwards, but then it begins with, he was the son, so it was thought, of Joseph. So here what Luke is doing is attributing the earthly father, but then also saying he isn't totally the son of Joseph. And so this genealogy then in Luke follows Mary's lineage. So if you remember when we were kind of talking in some of the Unlikely Heroes and then some of the Advent devotions and things like that, we were talking about how both Mary and Joseph were from David's line. And so both would have needed to register, even if they hadn't been married. Both needed to register in Bethlehem for the census that was issued. So that's where we get that. So you can try to follow the family tree. It branches off at some point. If you're really good with names and all of that kind of stuff, you would have it. So that brings us then to the census. So now we have it covered, why they both have to go back to Bethlehem. Now comes the census. This part's tricky. Because we have nothing from what the actual census is. We don't even know exactly how they would have taken census at that time, because writing things down was not a huge priority. Even scripture at this point was passed down orally by tradition. And so people would have been much better at being able to say, like, here is my generations to the 14th and 15th generation. I mean, I can sit and tell you that, like, I am the daughter of Aaron and Linda. Aaron is the son of Walter and Eleanor. And then after that, I'm done. I cannot for the life of me remember who Eleanor's parents were and who Walter's parents were. So they just would have been better at remembering all of that stuff anyway. Also, census at this time was largely for numbers and taxation purposes. They were not so concerned with the genealogy per se, as much as they were interested in money. And ooh, look, there's 5, and there's another 5, and there's 10, and just more keeping track of the number of people and not who the people were specifically.
Which leads us down another rabbit hole, because how did you know you already got taxed and that you weren't taxed twice? Like, what was the proof if it wasn't written down?
Right.
Because if it was written down, you would just walk up and simply say, Mary, Joseph, here to register.
You could think like, okay, so each census was brand new.
Yeah.
But then how can they keep you accountable to like actually show up where you were supposed to be registered? And I don't know, it was a whole rabbit hole that you could go down, and there is no clear answer. So nobody at that time was going on ancestry.com
by no means,
and registering themselves and trying to figure out who their family was.
Yeah.
But it is pretty cool to look and see that within the Bible we have the family tree of both Mary and of Joseph.
Wow. So, great first question, Marianne and Pat.
And we really didn't answer it, but there you go. There's that little tidbit.
No, and if you are an expert in the ancestry and census taking, let us know if you've come up with something different. Mm-hmm. Once again, you can look in Matthew chapter 1 or Luke chapter 3, and you can find the genealogy of Jesus. So, we hope that you will comment or share or catch us in the hallway at church. Please ask us questions so that next week we can be here again in Ask Us Anything. Until then, we'll see you next time.